5, 4, 3, 2, 1. CTS Podcast, episode 41.
Yo. Last week on the other podcast, you should check it out. I beat Henry in trivia. Shout out to the other podcast, CTS Pop Culture.
I don't know if that's entirely accurate. It's a good segue
talking about fake media. People go watch.
I don't even know if it's out yet. Well, it will be by the time this one comes out.
Yeah, so this week we had the G7 summit.
Took a nice little socially distanced picture.
Yeah, that was just cheeky.
It's so
that socially distanced
that picture was funny
because
it was like, it looked like what you'd see in like a wax museum.
Are you talking about the one with the Queen in the middle?
I don't know.
When they're on the stage.
I saw Boris Johnson. No, it's the one with like it was like Boris Johnson, Joe Biden, like I think Putin was there.
Yeah, they were all vaccinated.
So funny. Well, I don't even care about that. I just thought the way they were like positioned was funny. It just looked like, I don't know, like it looked like you could just comp it together in Photoshop or something.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I haven't really heard any other news about the G7 summit though.
I saw Biden's not going to have a like kind of like a conference with Putin.
Yeah, like a meeting or a discussion, which is weird. That's bizarre.
Isn't that the whole point of the like G7 summit? Is that the leaders of those countries come together and meet and discuss?
Apparently, he feels they have nothing to talk about.
Which seems weird.
Even though Russia's piling troops on the border of Ukraine,
and like two of the biggest world powers at the moment. You'd think you'd be able to find something to talk about.
I wonder how Russia is going to position itself for the next 100 years, because they are their military strength is decreasing rapidly. Their economy is mostly stagnant. Like, it just seems like that country needs some revitalization.
Well,
and that's coming from me, who lives in the United States and has very little idea about the inner workings of Russian politics. So
a lot of their economy though is based on like natural resources and oil and stuff. So
and they're very self-sustaining. I don't think they import a lot of goods.
Yeah, but they also, like, the fact that most of their economy is based on oil, or a lot of it, is got to be pretty concerning for them as the world transitions to more renewable energy sources. You can't really rely on that.
Yeah, they've probably got 100 years or so until it's really gonna hurt. But we'll see. It seems like I was watching this thing. The average person makes like, I think in St. Petersburg makes like 25 USD a day. Isn't that crazy?
Well, those numbers are nuts. That like when you start comparing salaries or like kind of average income from other countries, there's like some countries in like Africa and South America where the average person makes like $1 a day, like $2 a day. Like I think that's extreme poverty is like living on under $1 a day, which is just it's so weird to think about that. Like there are people, it's just a crazy thing to think about.
I saw one thing Biden's proposing at the G7 is a minimum corporate tax rate across the world at 15%.
Across the world?
Yeah, but between all of the
G7
yeah
nations. It'd be tricky, I think, to like coordinating global policy seems to always be pretty difficult, especially with some of the countries that are involved. Cooperation isn't always the best among those parties.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Dude, Angela Merkel's retiring. It'll be interesting to see how Germany reacts to that, because she is probably one of the, if not the best German leader in their history.
You think?
For sure. The stuff she's done for Germany is... I've read a lot about her because I find it really interesting, but she's like probably the most powerful woman in the world.
Yeah, I mean, Germany's one of the, like, I mean, financially, they're super powerful.
Yeah, the only countries in front of them economically are China and the United States. That means they have the best economy in the West apart from the United States.
Yeah, so that's nuts. When was the last time? It seems like politicians don't typically retire.
Yeah, she I don't know. I know I don't think she has a term limit or anything, but I think she's just calling it as she won her last election. She's had like a couple of big scandals, but yeah, the stuff she's done for Germany is really crazy. She's like really respected there from what I understand. I mean, obviously they still hold elections but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how where Germany goes from here.
It's interesting. It's always interesting when one of those like mainstays of politics kind of retires or goes away or loses an election or whatever, because you just don't know what's coming next. Like for so long, it's just been like a steady, this is what you're getting from this country, these people.
Yeah,
and then it can change.
Think about what'll happen in Russia and China and North Korea, and like when Vladimir Putin leaves office, it's gonna be a big power struggle probably.
Do you think he ever leaves office?
No, he'll die I think he can serve until like 2035 or something now, and
well, didn't he set up
can become a senator or prime
yeah,
minister
like he
for
gets
the rest
like a
of his
lifetime
life.
Senate seat. Yeah, that's nuts.
And I think he's immune to all legal investigations too. He's made himself immune.
Yeah, that's usually not a good sign for how legal someone's dealings are. When while they're in power, they make themselves completely immune to any legal proceedings. But yeah, I think countries like that are kind of led on, like the leaders are like, what's it called, like the cult of personality, is that the term that I'm thinking of?
Yeah, you could use that.
Where it's just like, I mean, Putin and Russia are synonymous, like Xi Jinping in China, synonymous, Kim Jong-un in North Korea, just like they're kind of inseparable. So it'll be interesting to see when. While we're talking about Kim Jong-un, remember like last year when there were all the reports that he like died?
Mm-hmm.
And then they were just completely fake?
Yeah, I think North Korea said it was fake, but it definitely wasn't fake. I think U.S. like intelligence was saying that he was hospitalized or maybe that he died. I know,
but he obviously
our media
didn't
was
die.
reporting that he died, but yeah, he didn't die. He looks like he's in perfect health.
That's a stretch, but
Other than being,
he doesn't look like
obese.
he's dead, and he's definitely. But it's just weird. Like, how does that happen? That like the leader of a country, it gets reported that they're dead, and everybody believes it, and they're just not. I don't get it.
That is kind of weird.
Like if you woke up and it was people were reporting that like Biden had died, you'd go, "Oh man, he must have." Right? Like no way is that getting reported if it's not true.
Yeah, it just shows how tight North Korean information is.
Yeah,
how
that's
locked
true.
down it is.
But I wonder who started that. Do you think it was North Korea?
I think
like
he was
trying
probably.
to weed out.
I think he was probably hospitalized with like a heart attack or something.
Yeah.
And he probably legitimately like died, and they brought him back to life or something crazy. But
yeah,
I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Did you see that video of Emmanuel Macron getting slapped?
No. What happened?
So for a little bit of context, France has been cracking down on like Muslim extremism ever since that big story about the teacher who was beheaded, and they've been cracking down hard on Muslim extremism. I think they banned wearing a burqa in public. I think that was one of the things that they did. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But he was shaking hands at like some meeting or event, and he was shaking hands with this guy who like winded up and just smacked him across the face. And then his like Secret Service came in and like grabbed him and like threw him to the side, and they just grabbed this guy and woof.
Oh my
and took him down.
gosh.
Can you imagine if like someone just slapped Biden?
That's so bonkers. Like, yeah, those events are always weird to me when they're like just shaking people's hands and stuff, because it's like,
You're the president. Yeah.
well, and like they're right there. Like, you don't, like, if someone just acts quickly, like something like that can happen. And I guess they usually like screen people before they go into the event. So,
Well, yeah, and I guess it's a little bit different in Europe because you can't really buy a gun, but it's weird in the United States because the president's out in public. Like, it's not rare to see the president out in public. And I think you're right. They do screen people, but they must screen them really, like, they must, like, we have no idea how much work the Secret Service does.
well,
like, they literally plan every single route. They send crews to inspect the roads. They like bomb crews to inspect if there's bombs. Like, I don't think we have any idea the amount of prep work it takes just to move the president down the street. Nevertheless, move him across the country. So I've got to imagine that everywhere the president goes, there's got to be people on the lookout, like with snipers,
for sure.
and like
100%.
that we just don't see.
Yeah, he got slapped. Macron's a weird one.
He's a weirdo.
Like, he's the youngest in his family. Like, his wife's children.
How much older is?
Well, his wife's like children from her first marriage are older than him.
So let's see how old she is.
Like,
she'll be 70 in 2 years.
So how old are her children? Like, look that up.
Wife, children, age.
They're like,
so 40. She has a 46-year-old as her oldest. How old is Emmanuel Macron? And he's 43.
That's bizarre.
Cringe.
That is so weird.
Can you imagine
like
marrying a woman a lot older than you and her kids are
her children are older than you?
That'd be that's weird. There's some weird stuff.
She taught him in like elementary school or something.
Really?
Or something like that, or maybe she was like a high school teacher or something.
Wow.
It's weird. Yeah.
Those young leaders are usually pretty weird. Him and Justin Trudeau, they usually get involved in scandal. Those young leaders in the West, like Emmanuel Macron, Justin Trudeau's in a big scandal right now. I'm trying to think of the last really young U.S. president was like JFK.
And
right?
he was involved in tons of scandals.
And then, yep. And Obama, but he wasn't really young.
He was pretty young. Wasn't he like
didn't
40?
really have any scandals.
Yeah.
Other than, what was it called? It was more of Hillary's scandal when
Benghazi,
when those terrorists attacked a U.S. embassy and they killed the ambassador.
Yeah.
I think they said that was like the first time in 40 or 50 years or something that an ambassador had been killed.
Yeah, that stuff's crazy. How about that? Did you see that latest like Kamala Harris interview?
Which one?
With Lester Holt.
I saw some of it.
It's just like at this point it doesn't make sense to me. It's like she's playing a version of herself. Like she's like playing the character because it doesn't make sense for it to be her real personality. Like Lester Holt goes, "So are you going to make a trip down to the border?" And she goes, "What? Well, we're going to the border."
We are going to the border. We have been to the
We're
border.
going to
and
the
he goes,
yeah.
You've been to the border.
And she goes, "I've been to Guatemala."
She's like, and no, she goes, he goes, "You've been to the border." No, and then she goes like, "No, I've been to Guatemala." And then he was like, "So you haven't been to the border?" And she goes, "Well, I haven't been to Europe either." What?
There's also not like an immigration crisis on the worst immigration crisis in decades probably that you haven't. And she like just starts laughing, like maniacally laughing.
She's an evil villain.
It's bizarre. It's like a character. Like if you were writing like a political character that didn't care about anybody, that's how you'd write him. Like, I could see that being like the bad guy in some movie.
She's just. Can you imagine? She's like in a Bond movie. She's like, ah ha ha ha. He's like, it's just.
Well, I have
funny
been to
to think
Guatemala, and I haven't been to. She just starts naming every country she's been to and hasn't been to.
I've been to China. Haven't been to Japan yet.
Just goes through every single one.
Lester Holt is like, what?
But she's like, it's not even like just listing them all straight out. She like goes back and forth. Yeah.
It's weird. It's just weird.
And it's like, why? It just, to me, proves how like disingenuous all this stuff when the border crisis under Trump was happening, and all those people were losing their minds. Like, rightfully so. It was a border crisis. But then I haven't been to the border. Yeah, that stuff just bugs me so much.
It is weird. And the administration's just avoiding it so far, which is also weird.
Yeah, have they come out with any, like,
no
proposals?
No.
Yeah, I don't. And then didn't they just, like, take away the $2 billion that Trump had set aside for
the wall?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the wall is, I don't think it got enough publicity, but the wall was getting built. Like, there were sections of the wall being built, and apparently there's, like, this big section that you could connect the two pieces of the wall, and they're just refusing to finish it. But then I think it's the DHS controls the border or something like that, recommended that the wall get finished being built, and then the administration said no or something like that. But it's just weird. It's weird to say we're not going to finish this, because whether you feel it's immoral or not, a wall stops illegal immigration. I mean, objectively, a wall stops illegal immigration. It's a wall. And it's just weird to me that you have the biggest border crisis in a long time. But that's what the left did. They said that the wall was racist, so you can't advocate for it now because it's racist. What a weird argument.
You lose
to say this object is racist. Like, how is it racist? Please tell me how a wall is racist.
You lose the ability.
Comments surrounding the use of a wall by Trump could be taken as racist, but the physical building of an object is not racist.
Yeah, it's very much, I don't know, it's just kind of a weird thing because they back themselves into a corner where anything that Trump did, they have to do the opposite. So even if it was a good thing, you have to do the opposite. You can't go, well, we don't agree with him on a lot of things, but this was a good decision. We're going to continue this. No, it has to be the exact opposite. Except for putting kids in camps at the border. I guess they just decided to outdo him on that one. Is that checking out with you?
That's a good point. I mean, you would think for them calling a wall racist, they sure are putting a lot of kids in completely media forbidden facilities. It's really quite something.
Yeah, I was like just watching the Hunger Games, and when there's a place where the government doesn't want you to record, the government's not the good guys. So what does it tell you?
Happening in that place.
I'm not making a comparison here, but never once has the requiring you not to record something like that, the people telling you not to record are not the good guys.
Well, not just the public. They were telling senators
it
not
was
to
like
record.
Members of the government. They were saying you cannot record.
A co-equal branch of government. They were saying you are not allowed to record. don't you, dude? I was talking with someone who we're both friends with, and he has some hot takes. But anyways, we were talking, and I was saying that the United States has become so unbalanced in that the executive has so much power. And I was saying that I think in 5 or 6 decades, we're going to be borderline authoritarian state. Borderline. Maybe 8 decades.
That's a hot take.
Maybe 8 decades. But here's what I think. As issues become more complex, as the wealth gap continues to get bigger, as inflation continues to rise, or people in the bottom 50% aren't making nearly enough money to live happily, I think that we're going to see, and we've seen Congress's inability to get anything done at any level. I think more and more power is going to go to the president through executive order or whatever, through the bureaucracy. And I think the Supreme Court will continue backing it up. I think they're going to continue saying, yep, the president has...
You think?
Has his executive order scope is much bigger than I think people realize it is. And I think in 8 decades, when Congress still has the inability to act, I think that the executive is going to become as powerful as like someone like Xi Jinping. Maybe he won't use all that power.
That is a hot take.
It's not a hot take.
That's about one of the hottest takes I've heard.
Because you think that, and I'm not saying I agree that it should
That's
go
the
that
title
way.
of the video.
It
U.S. like China in 80 years.
That's not
question
bad.
mark,
That's not a
exclamation
bad,
point, question
title.
mark.
But, I mean...
With Xi Jinping equal Biden as
We're
the thumbnail
get
in the
shadow
thumbnail.
No, but I think look at the COVID stuff. I mean, they couldn't get... I mean, they eventually got it done, but they were not going to get it done until there was massive public outcry, and I think they finally came to an agreement of some kind, but it took them how long? And I think that you're going to have way bigger issues than that in the future. Way bigger. And Congress will have the inability to act, and the president will have to step in.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the history of the United States. We've seen more power go from the states to the federal government every decade since the beginning of the United States, and it's not stopping. I mean, the states are losing power. The federal government's scope of jurisdiction is getting, not jurisdiction, but scope of reach or whatever is getting way wider than it ever had been. And I think in 60, 70, 80 years, the president will be able to make decisions like Xi Jinping through the use of executive order.
Yeah, executive orders are a weird one because they are like, it's like making a law kind of, but just without going through Congress, without any of the checks and balances that I think that probably needs to be like put in, like kind of limited, because like the president can do a lot with those. Yeah,
but are they really like, I think my take on this when we last talked about executive orders was, I first of all, I actually don't think they're as constitutional as people think they are, but that's besides the point, because I feel like we actually are probably going to need them more and more, because I legitimately think that if no one takes action on some of the big issues, it's going to get really, really bad. And unless we do something about Congress, which will not happen, it will not happen. No one will be able to touch Congress. No one will be able to touch campaign finance laws. The Supreme Court has been very clear about it. So if no one can touch Congress, they're essentially untouchables, then what are we supposed to do? You have to look towards the president, right?
Yeah, I think that's a bad deal though. Like that.
I'm not saying
already,
I want that.
No, I understand.
I'm not saying I want that, but I'm saying that's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, because you've got to make Congress. It's a weird thing where it's like the president, since the president has the ability to kind of bypass Congress, makes it unequal and allows Congress to not do anything, right?
Yeah.
Because Congress doesn't have to do anything. So do you think, I don't know, I kind of feel like if you took power away from the president and it balanced it back up a little bit, there'd be more of an incentive to get Congress to cooperate. Because now neither side cares if they have the presidency, because they're like, okay, executive orders for stuff we want to get done.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite to that point yet, but I think it's going to get to that point. So you're right. You have like essentially two choices. You can fix Congress and make it better by taking powers away from the president, giving more powers to Congress. Maybe you change the filibuster rule.
I don't even know if you need
of that,
to take powers away from, or you need to give powers to Congress. I think you need it so that for anything to get done, there has to be cooperation.
Yeah, but I think Congress right now doesn't have nearly the level of knowledge or insight that the president does.
You don't think? You don't think
no
some of those dudes
shot.
that have been in Congress?
No shot.
Some of those
They
dudes,
know nothing compared to the president.
Some of those dudes have been in the Senate for like 30, 40 years. You don't think?
I don't think so, because even the vice president doesn't know nearly as much as the president does. The president knows everything.
I don't know.
And is the chief legislator. He could, I mean,
I think some of those dudes like Mitch McConnell, I think there's some stuff Mitch McConnell knew that Trump didn't.
They get private briefings and private insights, but I really think that compared to, for example, Joe Biden, there's no way that I think they know a lot, but I don't think they have the level of insight or access that the president
So
does.
you don't think the senators are provided with chocolate chip ice cream whenever they want it?
No.
Unbelievable.
That
is a travesty.
That video is unbelievable, though.
We talked about it.
Oh, we did.
Yeah,
That's right.
because that was the thumbnail. Chalky chip.
That was the thumbnail?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But regardless, yeah, I don't know how you fix it. It's probably got to be the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court hasn't done anything.
Well, they're refusing.
I think it should be you only get executive orders like during war times. So if a president wants it, there has to be like, I don't know. And it has to be like officially declared war.
That's also a hot take. We're throwing around hot takes
You think?
today.
You think that's a hot take?
Not necessarily.
president-
Not necessarily. If Congress was good, I would be like, that's not really a hot take, because I legitimately think that executive orders are borderline unconstitutional, if not entirely unconstitutional. And I think that if Congress did their job well and things got done with Congress and there was some level of bipartisanship, I'd be like, yeah, the president doesn't need to have this much power. No shot he needs this much power. But I think it's kind of become so intolerable in Congress that I think a lot of people rely on executive orders.
Yeah, that's true. I'm trying to kill two birds with one stone. That if we're going to go into conflict somewhere, we should have to officially declare war.
Yeah.
You should have to go through Congress.
I think
for
the
that.
biggest thing, you get rid of campaign finance or you enact better campaign finance laws, you fix a lot just by doing that. And the fact that the Supreme Court said in that decision that money equals free speech, I think that set a precedent that is like probably never going to be broken, first of all. And I think it was a really, really bad thing for the country. That entire decision, the thought process, the arguments that went into making that decision, I think they're all wrong. And I think that, for crying out loud, I think the decision was like 4-3. The swing vote was on Scalia. I remember reading his decision, and I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. Right? Do you agree with me here?
Yeah.
There's no way that money equals free speech. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it's difficult because it's like
and especially from especially from corporations.
that's good.
That's
That was
the
going to be
weird
my
part.
point. Is
Yeah.
that like maybe from individuals, like
Yeah, it's
it
different.
gets more tenable, but for like corporations and the whole like the fact that corporations can donate to campaigns, we see people like come out of public office and go straight to like the board of some corporation. Like that stuff is just so ridiculous. It's yeah, and I agree with you. Like if you had fixed that stuff, I think a lot of not only like the problems would go away, but a lot of the people would go away. If you can't go to the Senate to
Yeah.
get a cushy board job and because you slid a few deals for like ExxonMobil and stuff, then I think like the Nancy Pelosi's, the Chuck Schumers, the Mitch McConnells, I think they'd go away.
Yeah, you fix campaign finance, you set term limits. I think you do those two things, and Congress gets a lot better. Just by those two things, I think it gets a lot better.
It's still bizarre that there's no term limits in.
I know. And I think you'd have to do it through a constitutional amendment. I think the Supreme Court would say constitutional amendment. I don't think you could pass a law. Maybe you could, but I think it would probably...
Well, it's in the Constitution right now, right? Like the president's term limit?
Yeah, the president's term limit, but the senators, it doesn't specify how many times they can run. It just specifies how long their terms are. So I think, I mean, maybe you could do it through a law because it's not in there. It's not specified. So they might be able to do it through a law and get everything okay. But
It'd probably have to be an amendment.
I think so too.
But how are you going to limit the power? Like it takes a vote from those people. Like to get an amendment across, it's 2/3, right?
You can do that, or you can pass it at the state level. You can do, I think they call them constitutional conventions at the state level. And if you get, I think it's either 2/3 or 3/4 of states to agree, I think the states can pass a constitutional amendment. And I think that's how, I'm trying to remember the specifics of it, but they did it through the states for one of the amendments. But maybe it still needs to be ratified by Congress.
Yeah.
I think it does still need to be ratified.
So I don't know how you're getting 2/3 of the people in, especially like senators, like House of Representatives. Those people are just like running for office like more than they are doing their job. But senators like have been around for forever.
We'll have to look it up because there's got to be. I think I remember learning about a way that you can do it
Like
without
skirt Congress. Yeah.
Like Utah, you have to do it through something weird though. It's called like a constitutional convention. I know Utah and there's like a handful of other states that still do them. Like I think pretty regularly they still hold constitutional conventions. But I mean, imagine trying to get 3/4 of the states or 2/3 or whatever it is to come together to all of their legislatures to come together and say, we don't want this anymore. And with how connected all those politicians are to
Not a chance,
especially
right?
to governors.
Because you're even, like governors are getting funded by the parties, especially in states where it's like close. Like the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are funding those campaigns. Like this might not have been a governor, but it was some like relatively low level official that was running in some state that like 95% of their like campaign funding came from like out of state donors.
Yeah.
Why like a local campaign
That's how a lot of AOC's
is
funds
getting
came in.
like 95% of their donations from out of state donors that like aren't constituents, won't be affected. Yeah, it's just bizarre.
Do you think that the Constitution, do you think the founding fathers ever anticipated it would be like that? That the country would get so big with 50 states and these senators that stay in power for so long. There's no way they anticipated that the Constitution would get to a point where you literally cannot amend it. I don't think we will see another constitutional amendment.
Yeah.
Ever. That's a crazy thought that they put this entire provision.
Ever? Like not even just like not in our lifetime?
It would take something really, really big, like a big war or massive poverty, massive something for people to actually move forward with it. And I don't think the founding fathers really realized it would become like that. I think they probably thought that the Constitution itself was going to be amended, and I would assume they would think pretty frequently, but it's gotten to a point where I don't see it ever getting amended again.
Yeah, I
I
don't
mean, think of the
that's
last time we did it. I think it was
too crazy a thought.
18-year-olds got the right to vote.
Yeah.
That was the last one. That was 50 years ago or something.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
That's
I don't think
bonkers.
that's too crazy. Okay. Want to wrap this one up?
Yep.
Bye-bye.
CTS P EP 41 over and out.